There we go. So, hello and welcome to the start of the activities on day 4 here at the Love Tutoring Festival. Day 4, the theme of day 4 is the National Tutoring Programme. And really we wanted today not necessarily to be a day filled with only those involved in the National Tutoring Programme. We also understand that the NTP is made up of a range of factors, and one of those is a specialism in supporting children with special educational needs and disabilities, which is why Amy's event fits in very, very well here at the start of day 4, as is, for example, Sarah Logan's CPD accredited workshop later on this evening is about creating a positive online space in online group tutoring, which is something else that the NTP has very much holds dear. So here comes Sarah herself. So this is a really key event to start the day off with. And Amy Smith is the founder of Apricot Learning, and her wonderful team here, Jodie Phillips, Faye Odell, and Trisha Heather, will be taking us through a true workshop, highly interactive over the next hour. As a brief introduction, Amy is the managing director of Apricot Learning. Before joining Apricot, Amy taught in mainstream schools and colleges in both the UK and the US. She has also been a guest lecturer at a variety of universities, seminary and civic groups, as well as a practicing theologian and iconographer. So as an iconographer, she knows how connected mind and body really are. And as a theologian, she is aware of all the opportunities missed and taken for closeness and proximity between individuals. Now, Amy also has over 30 years of IT experience. I'm sure that will be coming to the fore today, which is another important skill set that she brings to Apricot. She is the driving force really behind all of Apricot's technical innovations, and has also been invited to confer with the DfE on an inspection framework for online education providers and their work towards creating a registration or quality assurance mark for these organizations. So here today, 9 AM UK time at the festival, Amy and her team will explain the why and the how behind online lessons for special educational needs and disabilities children, otherwise known as SEND, if those of you who aren't sure of that acronym. In particular, discussing how to engage SEND students online, building trust and relationships when invited into their homes, and creating an interactive stage on which they can act. A huge thank you to our lead sponsors, Nudge Education. They've been with us every step of the way in the preparation of this festival, and we are very, very glad about that. And also welcome to the sponsorship stage to Tutor Cruncher, who will be sponsoring day 4 at the festival. Hugely popular tutor management software used by many of the National Tutoring Programme tuition partners. So thank you very much to both of them for being here. But that is quite enough from myself. So without further ado, Amy, I'll hand over to you and your team.
Oh, thank you so much. It's just a pleasure to be here and an honor to be asked to participate. Welcome, everyone. I'm going to just share my screen and let's see if I can get up what I need to get up. How's that for everybody?
Yep, that looks perfect, Amy.
Okay, great. So we're going to spend about half the time talking about us and what we do, and the other half of the time, or close to it, will be you guys giving it a try. So we specialize in re-engagement and reintegration for SEND students. We are a trauma-informed alternative education provision. So first, I'm just going to give you a little introduction to interactivity in lessons online, how and why these lessons work for our SEND children. And then the rest of the time, you guys will be able to try to imagine for yourselves how to make lessons interactive. That can be both in the physical classroom, but more especially in the online environment. And then we'll finish it up with some feedback and Q&A. So as I said, we have for the last 10 years been crafting how to teach online, especially as a trauma-informed AEP. One of the hallmarks, I suppose, is that we teach the whole child, not just the subject. So as you will know, our children come to us with gaps in learning, with low confidence, low self-esteem, hardly any resilience. So it is through the subject that we pay attention to the whole child. And my staff will get into that shortly. One of the ways we do that is, as you know, in a physical classroom, the teacher is the star of the show. But in the online environment, the teacher can't be the star of the show. That's just boring. So we have to create an arena in which the children become the principal actors in lessons. They're the one manipulating the equipment, clicking, drawing, writing. You'll see more of that in a bit. We work with schools, local authorities, and parents, and we work with students one-to-one and in small groups with a maximum of 10. We find that's the maximum we can do for SEND students. So our students are SEND, they're behavior students, a lot of medical health needs children, mostly high anxiety coupled with perhaps ASD, CFS, ME, all kinds of selective mutism, all kinds of different issues that our students come to us with that have been barriers for learning or barriers for attending school full time, and that's where we pick up. So how do we do this? We engage our children principally and initially through relationship building. This is a little bit different because we're building a relationship in their own private, safe space, oftentimes, which is their home. And that's different from when they come into a school. We provide fun and interactive lessons, and you'll see some of that shortly. I will go into the reporting. That's almost the jewel in the crown for Ofsted inspections and for reintegration into school, but also student revision, client information. And, you know, Ludo, thank you. You mentioned that we were chosen one of 4 provisions to undergo is the word I'll use, undergo the pilot scheme for online provision inspection framework from the DFE and through Ofsted. And one of the things they mentioned was how surprised they were at the impact of the use of our technology. So what I want to share here, I don't know if this, is this blocking at all? I'll move it up a bit. These are the interactive subscriptions that we actually pay money to. We buy these in. If you don't see English, that's because it's included in the all subjects. You don't have to buy all of these. I think it's about a 10 or 15,000 pound cost a year. But what that allows us is to give for free all of our students access to these amazing interactive subscriptions that they can utilize both in lessons and out of lessons. However, you should have received, and if you haven't already received, Ludo, maybe you can tell me. If you haven't received it, you can email me, but we've created a very long PDF of free interactive sites that you can use as resources online. So please definitely communicate with me through email, amy@apricotlearningonline.co.uk. It's a horrible email, but if you've got nothing better to do on a Saturday night, type that in with all the correct fingers. It's quite a workout. You get quite quick at it after a while. But let us know, and we'll send you that PDF if you haven't already received it. It will be great for your own practice. You can use them immediately, and there's no cost attached. So without further ado, this is a very short 4-minute video, and it shows about 6 or 7 different ways in which we use technology for impact. So let me know if this doesn't play properly. I can put it up on my, I can play it off my laptop. And if there's any problem with audio, somebody jump in vocally and let me know.
The one, that digit you're on now, that's just
okay.
1, not A, because the level above it is just 1.
Oops. Did I screw that up? Sorry.
It was playing okay.
My bad. I went to the chat box. Okay. There we go.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Drag them up, and you can see on the graph, they all gain a certain amount of gravitational potential energy. Now, what do you notice? First thing, do they all get the same amount of gravitational potential energy?
Yeah, watch the chat box, guys.
Okay. Which one has got the most gravitational potential energy? All have. Good. And paper, you can see that's got the least gravitational potential energy. But they're all at the same height. So obviously something else must also affect how much gravitational potential energy. Excellent. Good. The mass, the weight.
So Connor, your go again. 5. When we play, now an adjective or verb. Verb. It's quite hard, isn't it, when you just suddenly have to think of it? Yeah. Well done. So now then, Simona, could you do the mind? The mind. Why, Joe, she can. She can indeed. That's right.
And you're quite good at building circuits. So just put in one battery, one cell in. Yeah. That's it. Build a series circuit with just one bulb in, and make sure you've got, say, 2 ammeters, one either side of it, and a voltmeter going across the bulb. Yeah. So you might want to make it just a tiddly bit bigger. That's it. If you can get all the components in. Fantastic. That's it. Put your wiring on. Right, let's just click off the wiring so we can see all the values. Fantastic. Right, just give it a go because I've got a few examples to have a go at first. So, answer for this one. What do you think? You can put a ring round it or tick it. I don't mind. Yeah, wonderful. Cool. Let's go on to our next one. Yeah, 1/10. Cool.
No, it's fine. Just कोई बात नहीं. मैं देख लूँ सिर्फ ये tutoring की वो how to engage.
10. Now, could you simplify 6/10? 3/5. Yeah, good. Steady. Go. Oh, Ethan's nearly there. He's just got to sort out the bottom bit. Oh, Ethan's there as well. Well done.
Great.
Whoops. One. That's
See if I can get off of that. That's great. So as you can see, there was a lot of student interaction. I'm actually the most impressed with the circuit building. That always blows my mind that a student can just go, oh yeah, sure, I'll put these 2 ammeters here. But to talk more about all of this is Faye, who is our head of English, and Trisha, who's our head of science, and they are going to talk about 3 basic things: how to create trusting relationships in students' homes, personalized, engaging, flexible lessons, and again, this idea of interactivity where we create an arena in which the students become the stars in the show. So Faye, I'm going to pop it over to you to talk about building relationships. Good morning.
Okay, thanks, Amy. Hi, everybody. I'm going to just talk a little bit about how we can build trusting relationships with these students in order to really get the best out of them. And I suppose there's 2 main aspects to the success of our teaching environment online. And one is that to a degree it's anonymous because we don't use webcams, and this has many benefits. One of them is that it takes the pressure off anxious students. We can't see them, they can't see us, they can't misread any facial cues or body language, which is obviously really critical to anxious students, but also students with ASD. So it really does reduce a lot of that anxiety and stress. It also, because we don't use the visual input, it can reduce sensory overload, which is key for a lot of our students. So it reduces the load and again reduces anxiety, so that they can focus on what's really important, and that's, you know, the learning. Amy's mentioned that although we do teach some students in that are in their schools, often our students are in their own homes, and this is their safe place usually. And so it can be quite intimidating for us to come into their home and you know, and see them and see everything that's going on, and being able just to communicate either via the chat box or through speech is a way that they can protect that safe space. And we find it works really, really well in building a rapport and then keeping them engaged in the lessons. Many of our students have had a really negative experience in school, in alternative provisions, just with education in general. And so some of them are really hesitant about learning. They can be really switched off to learning. And when they start with us, because there's no webcam, there's almost an opportunity for them to reinvent themselves, to be who they want to be. It's a fresh slate, and that's a really good opportunity for us to develop, you know, a new and positive relationship with them. Developing a relationship can take time, but it's really key that from the very start we create a non-confrontational environment, one that's relaxed, it's flexible. We maintain non-judgmental approach through, you know, all of our lessons. We're about working with the student, as Amy touched on earlier. We're more enablers. We're not teachers in the, you know, traditional sense. We enable our students to learn and to fulfill their potential. You know, we're guiders. So so that's really important to have that non-confrontational, authoritative approach. We also feel it's really important to try and develop a connection of sorts. So if we can build a common interest or find a common interest or understanding in which to talk and communicate to the student about, it really does help to build that trust and to help them to open up and engage in all lessons. So for example, I had a student recently, first time in from an alternative provision, and they were logging in from home, but they had an interest in planes. And bizarrely enough, my uncle was in the news recently because he is the flight director for Rolls-Royce, and they were trying to do a record attempt for the Spirit of Innovation to become the fastest all-electric aircraft. So I was able to show her a video of my uncle and his experience, and that really set the tone for the start of our relationship. It meant an increase in attendance. She came back to the lessons, you know, she was engaged. We get to talk about, you know, my uncle and planes throughout the lesson. And actually that common interest is key, because we can build that into our lessons. So we really do provide a truly personalized learning program based on these common interests or these connection points. And Trisha's going to talk a little bit more about this personalized learning.
You there, Miss Trisha? You might want to unmute if you're muted.
Yeah, that always helps, doesn't it? I was going to say, good morning, everybody. That's something actually that we, especially when you've developed a really good relationship with your group, sometimes, you know, if you turn off your sound, and you'll get a little note or a little icon come up going, we can't hear you, unmute. So I think that's quite reflective of what can happen in a normal lesson, and you have to be flexible. I was going to start by saying that I think this idea, the pedagogy of personalized learning, is sort of well known to everybody. So I'm just going to sort of do a very quick tour around this, and I think I'll start over here on the right with sort of focused assessment. Now, our students are, when they come to us, you know, quite delicate in lots of different ways. And for some of them, the thought of having to do any form of assessment is really, really scary. Many of our students suffer with some anxiety. Sometimes that's quite extreme as well. And frequently there's this sort of fear of failure, being told that they're wrong or they have to correct their work again. So as far as our assessment goes, this is something we incrementally build in to our lessons with the student. So we might just start off with a few past paper questions. Now, the thing is, you've often got to disguise that within the whole lesson, as it were. So again, you know, microphone off. This might be one or two pieces of work that we allow them to do on their own, no comment from us, so that we can actually use that to going towards assessment. And then over time, as our relationship with them develops, we can move forward then to a more formal, a more summative assessment. And we can do that either via our learning platform, where they click on as individuals. They all get, if they're in a group, they would all have the same test. It's all done individually, so they don't see each other's work. You can pop through and see how far they're progressing through. Obviously, you can also allow them to have a PDF which they can work on, and you can, within a shared screen environment, see how they're progressing as they're doing it. But you can let them sort of get on with it themselves. So that's a very sort of incremental process we look through. I'll move on quickly to intervention, because a lot of our work, as with many teachers is now currently, is to look at intervention. And I think online learning really comes into its own on this. It's simple to say we find the gaps, we fill them. And then what we try and do is apply or link that new understanding across other topics and frequently into other subjects. So, you know, how do we really do this? Well, we have to encourage a high level of engagement and interaction. Our aim is to convert any sort of passive learning into active learning, and we do this by using interactives that we've embedded into our learning platform, but we also embed those interactives into their virtual exercise books, and I'll refer to those as VEBs from here on in. So this could be something as straightforward, say, gaining that engagement as maybe using a jigsaw puzzle of a heart or a complex process. So for example, later today, I will be putting that up as a bit of a starter for one of my year 11 groups, where I want them really to understand a little bit more about and improve their sort of keyword use. So, you know, they'll have to put it together, so they will need to know the different keywords as they're joining all the bits together. So in a way, we sometimes like to disguise what we're doing. You know, lots of interactives. Faye's going to go on and talk a lot more about the different sort of choices that can be made. And you've seen from the video clip, we certainly encourage ownership of learning. And what we focus on really is showing students how to learn. So Faye's mentioned one way, and we do have to find lots of different interesting ways to find a context which is interesting for them. And with regard to that, what we often do is we'll look to see what their interests are in, and sometimes we know that in advance, sometimes we don't, and that sort of slowly, as the relationship changes, becomes uncovered. So you can adapt your choice of context at the start of the lesson. We clearly have to sort of find out and explore what their current learning is, and then start to model what for them is new work, and give them the opportunity to try that on their own, and again in a very interactive way.
Fisher?
Yep.
Don't
Hurry
shoot
up.
the messenger. We've got only about 7 minutes or so to finish up what our
Okay.
presentation is before we move on. Do you want to
Okay.
hop
No,
on to
no.
any of these others, or go forward?
I think no, we can go forward, because I think a lot of this will be obviously covered as we go through. Now, I'm not sure, Amy, if you want to talk about reports now. Yeah.
I will do that very, very quickly.
Okay.
In some ways, this is the jewel of the crown of our provision. What you see here is just a quick summary page of attendance and progress tracking. Progress tracking we do each half term. And while I haven't listed the 21st century skills here, which I know Tricia was going to talk about before I interrupted her, confidence, resilience, effort, engagement, what I have included here are the learning behaviors that we also monitor and rate each term. The students get access to this, so they can see them, but so do the schools, all the stakeholders. I think in some ways this is the most informative part, especially when it comes to reintegration and also when it comes to student revision. So this child is taking 5 courses. I've just put one of them here, but what you will see in the reports is all the assessment objectives that the student has been involved with through the course of the term or the year. And it's kind of rag rated, though there are several variations of green and yellow and orange and red. And this is really helpful for Ofsted inspection evidence, but also to let teachers know when they go back into school where they are. It's not good enough to say they're at a grade 5. They need to know, well, what are they doing well in, and where do they still need help? So this accomplishes that. And then also full termly, we will do an ILP. And the only thing, because of time, that I'll draw your attention to is the bottom where it says achieving more. This is where we always give an opportunity for children to learn what little tiny step they can take for the next little incremental progression that they can have. So our reporting really concentrates on informing all stakeholders and reflecting student learning. The teachers can also run these reports, so they already know how their kids are doing in their lessons, but now they can see how they're doing in everybody's lessons. This leads to a lot of collaboration among staff and conversations about how better to teach a child if they're not doing as well in your class as somebody else's. This often then focuses on personalization and student choice. And so I'll turn it back over to Faye to talk about student choice.
Okay, thanks, Amy. So choice is really important for the students we teach. It allows them to take control and ownership of their learning, and often they haven't been and haven't had any control of their learning in parts of their lives. So it providing this opportunity by tapping into particularly interest-led activities is critical for increasing their motivation and engagement in lessons. So there's a series of slides that are going to come up that show how we build choice into the lessons. And the first one is the starter activity. So as students enter the lesson, whether it's one-to-one or a group, you can see that they're given a choice. They can ask questions, they can practice skills, they can go off and do a little bit of research to share with the group. And sometimes, because we've got several students logging in, it can take a few minutes for them all to load in and get themselves sorted. So this is a great opportunity to introduce choice at the beginning of a lesson, a positive start. So the next slide shows the main lesson, and this is arguably the most important part of including choice for a student. Now, choice options allow us as practitioners to learn about the students' preferences, but also how flexible their learning boundaries are. So for some, sticking to their preference is really important, as long as it's showing their skills and their knowledge. So that's obviously really important. For others, we might need to be a little bit more patient, work with them. When we've built up a relationship, we might be able to extend their comfort zone little by little, getting them to try different activities. For others, they're going to be really confident from the start, able and willing to try different choice-based activities. But whatever the needs of the student, we can, we can tailor it to their, to their needs, which is really important. So if we move on to the next slide, this one is an opportunity to offer choice for extension work. So if you've got a student or students that have finished all the activities for that particular lesson, they can go and choose how they want to extend their learning further. The really important thing is not only just to give them this choice, but to have a dialogue with them. Is there something else that you'd prefer to do? How can you show what you've learned? How can you develop your learning? And we're really keen to enable them to make their own choices and provide them with a place for them to explore their own ideas. I think the final slide covers homework, and this gives options for the students to provide opportunities to reinforce and extend activities we've completed in lessons, but it can last for a whole unit of work. So you could pick this up for several weeks, or you could make it last for 6 to 8 weeks. Choice is just one of the ways that we can be really flexible when teaching SEND students online. Again, Trisha's going to explain a little bit more about how Apricot Online has a real flexible approach.
Well, I'll do this really, really quickly. Well, location is clearly one of the huge flexibilities of online learning. Many of our students, and particularly our groups, are from right across the country. So in our groups, they are not necessarily at the same institute where they normally study. Students' work, flexibility in students' work, and is really sort of important. We use our virtual exercise books with them, and that sort of helps with communication as well. So we can communicate, particularly in a group situation, directly in there, particularly if students, for example, they're reluctant to work and ask for help. You don't have to do it via the chat box. You don't have to do it verbally. You can go in and write directly onto their work and say, do you need a little bit of help here? Shall I start you off? Again, quick feedback. Being able to give instant, direct feedback, which allows students to progress within the lesson, is really, really powerful online. And obviously, teacher flexibility is important. And what I mean by that is, for example, if a student becomes fatigued, or if they're struggling with self-control, then we can have a little bit of downtime. We can redirect them through dialogue and reconnect their learning, so that we can rapidly switch between different scenarios. We can sometimes switch between lessons or lesson subtopics, especially if you've preloaded that information. So what we try to do is reduce anxiety associated with learning and alleviate any unnecessary stress that the student will feel. We do this frequently by using sort of 1 to 10 scales. This is something I think we've all learned when we've worked together with outside agencies for some of our students who are selectively mute. Monitor their stress levels, no camera on. We do have cameras, we choose not to put them on deliberately, and that really helps for students who struggle with a bit of social interaction. I think Faye's now going to run through a few more of our interactives.
Okay, thanks, Trish. Okay, so I'm going to just whiz through these quite quickly, but we can provide interactivity in a range of ways. We work in a classroom, so we've got text tools, drawing tools, they can write in a chat box. And this is just an example of where I'm getting some of the students to match a label to the set of examples, and then they're going to write their own sentence on screen as well. And if we flick to the next, no, that's great. If we flick to the next slide, I was going to say, this is web use. So this is what we use Google Documents to create this web, so they can access any of the pages on the left hand side. They can copy and paste pictures, text in there. They can create their own text, use draw tools. It's really, really interactive. They can move things around on the screen. It's also, you know, we often do some work in the classroom, we move to our web, we go back to the classroom. It's really flexible to use.
You also, well, we'll get the students to take a screenshot of the work they've done in the classroom and then paste those into the web.
Yeah, we use webs to create revision material. They've got so many different uses. They're really, really flexible, and some of my students love webs. They prefer them to working anywhere else. But if we click to the next one, we can see that one of the great things that we can do in our classroom is we can embed videos. So if we have more than one student, everybody's watching the same thing at the same time, we can pause it, we can discuss elements, people can ask questions, and because I'm in control of that, there isn't any technical issues like, you know, links are dropping out, people can't access sites. So it's a really good feature to be able to have. And again, the interactivity in this is that you can get the students to be writing in the chat box or in the discussion notes information that you want to get them out of the video. So that's another example of interactivity. The next slide shows our subscription.
You can't go to the next slide yet.
Oh.
My favorite example of video use is when we did the Black Death bingo. So we had a bingo card on one side, and they had their highlighters to hand, and the video, it's like a music video. It was playing, and then they had to scratch away at the things that they either heard or saw in the video, and then take a poll on what was the most gross thing you saw. That video was wicked, but yeah, it's a good activity. Okay, now I'll let you go.
Okay, thank you. So this is just an example of how we can embed hyperlinks into the classroom so that it takes the student directly to the activity you want them to work on. And you can provide one subscription link or several, again, including choice in what you're offering. The links can also be put in the webs, and they can also be put in the chat box as well. So you've got a range of different options in order to share those links with the students. And then I think the next slide just is another example of how you can use the classroom or the webs to be interactive, and that's like highlighting text. So if I want them to look for a particular word class, I can get them to do that on the screen in the classroom or in their webs as well. And the final slide, really quick.
Can I just let people know, because this is second nature to you guys because you use them every day, but our webs, what the teacher can do is, well, the student has a link to their exercise book online, and the teacher, of course, has all their links, so they can put up 5, 6, 10 tabs in their browser, and they can just pop from tab to tab to see how each child is doing, and even work interactively with them on that. So I think that's another thing when you talk about using webs, it's not just kids go away, they're out of sight. You actually still have eyes on what they're doing.
Yeah, and the great thing about that is you can see exactly what they're doing live. That you can type to them, they can type to you. You can provide feedback which can be immediately worked upon rather than having to pick it up at a much later date, which can be really confusing. And I think the next slide, Amy, shows that ability to be able to see what's going on all the time. Independent research, obviously critical. We're trying to get these students to become independent learners and take ownership of their work. So going off and doing research, but bringing it back to the group or bringing it back to me or another teacher via screen share is really good. And we can have those tabs up on our screen for individual verbs, but we can also get the student to share the verbs on this screen, and so we can monitor in a single place that everybody's working on task, doing what they need to do, and they've got the ability to use the chat box if they need to ask questions along the way. You can click on each individual share pod and it maximizes it, because obviously if you've got a big group, you know, the pods are going to be quite small to see exactly what they're doing. But again, you can maximize the screens, you can go and look on their verb individually. So again, very, very flexible approach to monitoring and keeping everybody on track.
Brilliant, Faye. Real. Okay, well, you've heard us wax on for quite some time, so now it's your turn. We want to go into breakout rooms so that you can try it for yourself. We're going to work on 2 different topics. One is English, like a SPAG activity, and one will be science. We tried to pick something everybody knew something about, which is acceleration. I imagine most of you have driven cars or ridden in cars, so you know about acceleration. So what you're going to do is try to imagine all the ways you could teach online in engaging and interactive ways these 2 topics. Keep in mind that we're giving you students with high anxiety and autism, so just keep that in mind as you go along. We're going to use Jamboards in the breakout rooms. I think it's simple if you've never used them before. Yeah, so that's enough of me. So Faye will be in the English room, Tricia will be in the science room, my colleague Jody and I will join one of those rooms. And yeah, let's see if you can do it yourselves.
The rooms are open for you to choose. If you're struggling to get into a room, drop a message in the chat and I will.
Oh, can you just assign, can you, I thought you would split them up 50-50.
Oh, sorry, I thought they were going to choose where they wanted to go.
They might do, but I don't want any group not to have anyone in it.
Sure, I'll start sending people.
Thanks, hon.
Thanks, Jack. And thank you, Amy.
Hello.
Yeah.
Good.
Well, can I just share my screen for the last couple of minutes?
Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, but that is the first thing on it, which is feedback. So yeah, how were those breakout rooms?
We had an interesting question about about how early do you start engaging pupils with interactives in case the younger ones start to mess about and you know, and don't really use the draw tools in the right way. Right. So we had a discussion about that, and it's about really giving them boundaries, so offering them an activity that they can do that is within a boundary, and also you can use you can turn off the privileges if they're not going to use it in the right way. So that was useful. We could have done with some more time.
Sorry, that was us taking too long.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, there was a question I think in the main chat about behavior management, and you've just spoken a bit to that. Yeah, it's amazing with attention seekers what 5 seconds of no privileges will do. It blows their mind, and they straighten up quite quickly. If they do something else again, it's 10 seconds. Very rarely do we have to do anything else because they're like, I can't chat, I can't draw, I can't make a mess of things. So, and there's no, you're not in their face, so there's no confrontation there. So most of our behavior students are really just wicked good. And I love them because they have such personalities that may not work in a traditional classroom, but do work online where there's less pressure and less confrontation. So sorry, that's good feedback. Anything else, ladies, before I continue my rant? Tricia, if you're talking, you're on mute, babe. Okay, well, just interrupt me then. Do any of the participants have anything to feedback about the exercise? Okay.
Feel free to pop your thoughts down in the chat if you're not so comfortable coming off mute. We're just going to be wrapping up here in just a couple of seconds, but please do, you can see those contact details for Amy, Jody, and the main Apricot Learning email address.
Yeah, I did notice one other question in the main chat, which is about asking us to say a bit more about what it means to be trauma informed. So what that means is, again, paying attention to the whole child, recognizing there's an actual whole person on the other end of the computer. And so we have had ACEs training and 5 to Thrive training, and understand, and most of our teachers are SEND training and have further qualifications in young people and children's mental health issues. When we come to selective mutes, which is sort of on the rise for us, we just got a speech and language therapist in to help us figure out how to work with these children to get them to speak. And they are speaking now to us and to their families, which is quite amazing. But so what it means is we take a look at what the child presents, and then we try to fulfill those needs. And it's not like we do that separately from teaching the subject. We do it while we're teaching the subject. I guess what I'm saying is, okay, this child has to have English, math, science. Okay, fine. We'll give them English, math, science, but they're not going to get English, math, science until and unless we can combat and resolve some of the other issues that they come with. So that's what it means to be trauma informed from our perspective. Great. And so, yeah, contact us if you want more information, if you want training for your staff, if you want to talk more about how you can work with your children. Yeah, absolutely. Or if you want us to help work with your children. I have so enjoyed this, and I hope you all have as well. And thank you so much, Ludo and Jack, for having us. And again, that was a nudge connection, I think. So well done to Nudge.
Well done to Nudge. If you're here with us, thank you for sponsoring the entire festival. Thank you for putting us in touch with Amy and her wonderful team. Thank you, Faye. Thank you so much, Trisha. Thank you so much, Jody. I can't see Jody here anymore, but a huge thank you to the 4 of you for really making a real difference on this Thursday morning. We've had so many comments in the chat box saying how useful this has been. Expect a barrage of emails and messages asking for more information. So I hope you've cleared your week next week. But a huge thank you to all of you guys. That was a wonderful way to start Thursday. Yeah, we are just a few moments away from getting started with our first National Tutoring Programme Roundtable of the day. So Jack, if you could bring this recording to an end.